Prime Big Deal Days is coming October 8th and 9th. Woohoo! Which can lead to involuntary deal squeals, like the infamous deal on a new massager squeal. Yeah! Save big on Prime Big Deal Days, October 8th and 9th.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, distribute it everywhere, and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit your podcasts right from your phone or your computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, and when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&As and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel so supported in the creation and distribution of my show. Spotify for Podcasters hosts masterclasses, office hours, and more to help creators develop and fine-tune their skills. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Back to the Show. Thank you so much for clicking on this episode. Today's episode is going to be a solo episode, and I feel like we haven't chatted in a long time, which isn't necessarily true because I just posted a solo episode like 2 weeks ago. But in the podcast land, to me, that seems like a really long time. I had two incredible guests on the past 2 weeks. I had Kayla Rose from Skinny Dipping and Callie Jardine from Healthy But Human. So if you guys didn't listen to those episodes, you definitely should. Those conversations were just incredible. They're two of the coolest people I've ever met. So both of those episodes will be linked in the show notes if you guys want to give them a listen. And to some degree, those episodes somewhat inspired today's topic. Today's topic was kind of inspired by a lot of things, to be completely honest. But one major theme in my life has been community building. I've always been really interested in human behavior, and more specifically interested in the science behind how people get along and how communities are formed. Something that I'm also very passionate about is the fact that 3 out of 5 people say that they would consider themselves lonely. And I can only speak for myself, but I think most of us, if you're listening to this episode, most of us would probably say that more often than not, we consider ourselves lonely. And only recently did I start to feel like I had at least like 5 people that I knew I could call in case there was something wrong. So that all being said, today I'm talking about making friends in your 20s. The good, the bad, the ugly, the tips, the tricks, some little anecdotes here and there, all those things. But before we get into today's topic, let's just kind of dive into some life updates. This is going to be the chatty part, the catch up. First and foremost, if you guys did not listen to my episode from April 20th, I believe, maybe it was the 27th, I don't know, I need to double check. It was in fact April 20th, and the episode was called The Art of Slow Living and Why It's Important to My Healing Journey. And this episode, I listened back to bits and pieces today because honestly, when I record episodes, and sometimes I just kind of like get into a flow state and I forget what I say. And so before I record like the next episode or like the next solo, I like to go back and listen and just be like, okay, just making, I don't know, like make references to the past episode correctly. So I was listening back to this episode, and in that episode, I think I did a pretty good job kind of bundling up the past couple months of my life and tying a pretty bow around it and delivering it to you guys. It was very heavily sugar-coated. It was kind of like a 30,000 foot view of what I've been going through, but it's definitely a good delivery of a life update. So if you haven't listened to that, you definitely should. And I just kind of give you guys all like the dirty, not even the dirty details, but just some of the details as to what's been going on in my life and what I'm up to now. And a big theme for me lately has been working on myself and healing. And I published that episode April 20th, so I probably recorded it like this time last month. Is that right? I basically haven't recorded a podcast episode in like a month. That kind of checks out, or maybe like 3 weeks. But in the past month, I've definitely like ridden this wave of highs and lows, and I've come to a realization that feeling sad doesn't mean that I'm failing at being happy. And I wrote this in my notes the other day because I was laying in bed and I just started like combing back through my mind, like really letting the intrusive thoughts just have their way. And so naturally I just rolled over and I grabbed my phone and I started writing. I jotted down a couple things and I just started thinking about how my healing journey seems like it's not going the way that I thought it was going to go because I'm feeling sad. And as a person who is always trying to like be the best version of myself and looking for the best of the best and doing the best at everything, and we call that perfectionism, I really struggle when things aren't going the way that I thought that they were going to go. So I was kind of going through this low last week or the week before, and I was just kind of like, why am I still stuck on shit that's happened to me, a couple months ago? Why is this all coming up again? And I've got two points here. Point number one is that just because you're feeling a certain way doesn't mean that you're not a happy person. It just means that you're feeling a certain way. So for me, that was feeling sad doesn't mean that I'm failing at being happy. It doesn't mean that I'm not a happy person. It just means that I'm sad right now. The second point is that I had to remind myself that healing is messy, and I am embarking on a couple cool projects coming up. One of them being season 7 of the podcast. One of them being something that it's like a bucket list item for me, and I can't wait to tell you guys about it. And that is going to crack me wide open. And I know I'm like mentally preparing myself for the healing to happen, but in order to heal, I got to go there, So last week was a very like off week for me. And on top of it, I guess I should have started with this. I was on my period. So of course you feel everything so much more bigger. Of course you feel everything so much more when you're on your period because the emotions are intensified. So I think what I'm getting at here is let yourself feel your feelings, but don't like stay in them. Like actively do things to help get yourself out of that funk. Because last week for me, I really just like let myself sit there until I was journaling, and I literally wrote down, feeling sad doesn't mean that I'm failing at being happy. And then I went a little bit deeper and I was like, okay, well, what are the things that make me happy? And how can I do more of the things that make me happy? So I feel like it starts to become redundant, like what are things that I can do to make me happy? Okay, like yoga makes me happy, going for a walk, sitting in the sunshine. So I'm going to go to yoga later. I went for a walk earlier. I spent probably like an hour and a half on my balcony this morning doing a morning devotional. I journaled for a while. I did some breath work. I did some prayer, and it just building time into my daily routine to do that was incredibly important. So that's, I guess, a little bit of a life update, kind of where I'm at in my healing journey. That's kind of just like a brief sneak peek into what you guys can expect in season 7 of the podcast, which I'm so excited to share. Launches on June 1st. I'll have a whole like mini trailer for it coming in 2 weeks. It'll be like a bye week, the 25th of May. Season 7 of the podcast is starting June 1st, and the theme is Healing Girl Summer. I've got a lot of incredible guests in the queue who are going to come and talk about their healing journey. We've got confidence coaches, we've got authors and other podcast hosts, and just so many other cool people with incredible stories. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear from them. Obviously hear from me. We'll probably do like alternating between solo episodes and guest episodes. And I'm really pumped. And I'm just going to try to like promote the podcast more on social media and just try to, obviously nurture this community that we have here and just continue to build it up. So if you guys are excited for season 7, please, please, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a rate, leave a review. That helps more people find and listen to the show. And send a link to a friend who you think might enjoy this episode. Maybe send a link to a friend who you want to become a better friend. And since this episode is about making friends, you guys can bond over the fact that you both listen to 80/20. Honestly, a lot of my good friends have stemmed from them listening to the podcast and then reaching out, and like maybe they live in the area, maybe we grab coffee, or I don't know, just the podcast is kind of a good conversation starter. So it's kind of cool that like 80/20 has brought me more friends, and hopefully it can do the same for you. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, which is making friends in your 20s. It's hard as shit, but let's get to it. There's a book by Janine Allen, and it's called Find Your People. And I picked it up today in preparation of this episode. At the beginning of the book, she talks a lot about how loneliness is on the rise, and it contributes heavily to mental health problems. She says, research shows that 3 in 5 Americans report being chronically lonely. Scientists now warn that loneliness is worse for our health than obesity, smoking, lack of access to healthcare, and physical inactivity. So why are we letting it define our days? Is this living? Is this how it's supposed to be? I've been pretty open about how the past couple months have not been great for me. But one thing that I can say is that I did have at least a handful of people that I know I could have called and that I did call upon during this dark time. And I think I got through it because I had people around me who I knew cared about me. And if I didn't have people, I don't think that I would have made it through this horrible time in my life. So loneliness is not the way it's supposed to be. Humans are naturally social creatures. We want to be with other people. Currently, I'm recording this podcast in my house alone. And later I'm going to go spend time with a ton of my friends. We're all going to yoga. Maybe we'll go grab dinner after. Like, now that I've started to make connections with people, all I want to do is continue to make connections with people. I crave connection. A couple pages later, she goes on to say that if you want friends, you have to be okay with 2 indefinite truths. And those truths are the fact that people will make up the best parts of our lives, but people will also make up the most painful parts of our lives. So if you're going to deal with other humans, you have to be okay with them being humans too. So I don't want to sit here and sugarcoat it, but friendships are hard. It takes work to build solid friendships. I do think that it's true that when you find the right people, you guys will just kind of click, but it takes work to maintain those friendships. And also, you have to be okay with the fact that people are probably going to hurt you. They're going to make mistakes and they're going to be human. Friendships are imperfect. And if you want to make and keep friends, you have to be okay with them making mistakes. And I think back to like high school and middle school, I was always the type of person that kind of like cycled through friends. I look at people who had like really solid friend groups in high school and I always get so jealous. And I always wondered, like, what was I doing wrong in high school that made it so I didn't have like a solid friend group? I could think of a couple of reasons, but one of the big ones was that when people wronged me, I literally would just like disregard them. I would be like, okay, well, screw you, like, goodbye. To be totally honest, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because why would I want to spend time with someone who doesn't want to spend time with me? But what I think was really missing in these kind of surface level friendships was a sense of mutual trust, respect, and vulnerability. For the most part, it was small talk, chatting at the lockers, or going to parties together, and it never really got below surface level. And that is a huge part of making and keeping true friends, is mutual vulnerability. I always think that it'd be interesting to talk to people in my grade. Like, high school reunions will probably be interesting. I'll probably never go to one, but they would be really interesting if I did go to one, and just kind of like seeing other people's perspectives of who I was in high school, because on the outside, people probably thought that I was like in with the in crowd, but on the inside, I was really struggling to figure out where I belonged. I truly felt like I did not have a place. And so I kind of hopped from friend group to friend group because I was trying to find my place. And I don't think that I ever really found that. So all through grade school, all through middle school, all through high school, I felt like my friendships were failing. And that kind of turned into me feeling like I didn't deserve friends and that I was meant to be a loner and just introverted and not supposed to have like a close-knit circle of friends. And that perspective for a really long time kind of set me up. It kind of put like a little bubble or like a little gate around me and made me feel like I wasn't worthy of true friendships, which is such a lie.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
So I've kind of divided this episode into a couple different subtopics. The first one is developing new friendships. The second one is strengthening friendships that you already have. I want to briefly touch on male friendships versus female friendships because I find that super interesting. And then I want to talk about long distance friendships and then whatever else comes to mind too. So let's first start with developing new friendships. First and foremost, it's really important to assume that people want to be friends with you. I think it was like April of 2022, so it would have been April of last year, and I remember being really sick for the weekend, and I just remember sitting in the bathtub reading this book because we had just moved to Annapolis, and I had no friends. I genuinely had no friends, and I was super, super lonely. I had also just gotten out of a 3-year relationship, so any friendships that I had built within that relationship had crumbled, and I was so freaking lonely. I wouldn't say I'm a pro at making friends, but after reading this book in April of last year, it became a top priority for me to try to build a community here and put down roots and just start being friends with people. And when I started making an effort, when I started to be the one to reach out, I think that there's kind of this like misconception around reaching out, like, oh, if it's not reciprocated, then you should just stop. And it's always like such a toss up for me because oftentimes you just have to keep inviting people. You obviously don't invite yourself. Like you gotta go be in spaces where you're wanted. But once you start putting yourself out there, inviting people, talking to people, texting to check in, friendships just kind of come. And obviously, yes, maintaining them is hard, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But when you decide that you are not going to be a lonely person, you start to build relationships. It's hard work, don't get me wrong. We're going to dive into all of that today. I've got 4 different like subtopics here. First is developing new friendships. The second one is strengthening relationships and friendships that you already have. Then I want to talk about male friendships versus female friendships because it's such a hot topic. Like, can men and women be friends? And then long distance friendships, I think, is important to talk about too, because in your 20s, everybody like moves away for some reason, and that's really sad. So we're going to talk about that. First and foremost, I think it's important to walk around assuming that people want to be friends with you. Walk around assuming that you are the type of person that has tons of friends. Kind of like how I was a year ago. I started to making friends a priority, and it just kind of became a little bit easier. When you seem friendly, when you seem likable, people will want to be friends with you. I think it's important to know, like, I am a very introverted person. I recharge best by myself. I am kind of on the quieter side. If you put me in, a great example of this is I was at a bonfire a couple nights ago. My sister and I were both there. Lexi, my younger sister, is significantly louder and more outgoing than I am. I didn't talk much during that interaction. It's not that I wasn't being friendly. It's not that I was like being a bitch for not talking, but she's significantly louder than I am. I'm also not the type of person that's going to be like, I'm not going to talk over you. Like if I'm telling a story and people start talking over me, clearly my story's not important, so I'm just going to shut up. What's really cool though is that if you are ever in a group setting and someone's telling a story, pay attention to the person that's telling the story, even if people get like sidetracked and stuck in their side conversations. I digress. I think that I try to be friendly, but I definitely can be outgoing, but I'm not going to like overpower the whole situation. I'll like sit back and let other people do that. The reason that I'm telling you this is you don't have to be a specific personality type to make friends. Everybody is worthy and deserving of having friends, but you have to kind of get out of your comfort zone just a little bit, especially if you're naturally the type of person that isn't super extroverted. So approaching the topic of making friends with the perspective of I'm worthy of friends, I deserve to have friends, I am the type of person that people want to be around, is a really good first step in initiating new friendships. But where exactly do you find friendships? For me, I have always found that fitness has brought me my closest friends. It's funny because time and time again, I try to make friends in other areas of life, and they never just like click as well as my friends that I've met through fitness. And it typically goes a little bit like this. Maybe it's an acquaintance that I know from work, or that I had one instance where I met someone at a bar and saw them at a workout class like the following week. And so you like meet a person and kind of like break the initial ice, and then maybe you either invite them to a workout class that you guys maybe like talked about. Like one time I had a friend and she hadn't tried a specific workout class, so I invited her, but she was probably in a Queens at that point. But after the workout, we went and got coffee, and then she was a friend of mine. So going to a workout class and then bringing it beyond the gym, whether it's coffee after the workout or even just like going on a walk with someone, like if you're new to the area, and you want to meet up for coffee is such a great way to bring people together too. Yoga, walking, and coffee have honestly brought me all of my close friends. But maybe you want to like meet at the Starbucks, and then this new person can like walk you around the downtown area and show you their favorite spots or something like that if you just move to a new place. So I definitely think that turning to fitness, movement are really great ways to bring you new friendships. That works for me because yoga, coffee, and fitness are 3 things that are super important to me. That sounded like something that you would find on like a, what's the word for it? Like a crocheted like piece of art on like a mom's wall, like yoga, coffee, and friendship, and love and happiness. Like that was very like live, laugh, love of me. But anyway, yoga, coffee, and fitness have brought me my closest friends. But it doesn't have to be that way for you. Maybe you're really into reading, so you find a local book club, or maybe you are really into painting, so you go to, I don't know, maybe you drop by like a paint, I don't know, is there like an art place? I don't know. Or maybe you love running, so you join a run club. I know there's like in Annapolis, Forward Brewing. It's a brewery in Eastport. They have like a run I think it's like Wednesdays. You can go and maybe you run like a 5K, and then everybody drinks beer after. So there are places that bring adults together socially. So maybe there's like a reason to get you in the door, but then you stay for the community aspect of it. So when you think back to your childhood, you're put into environments and situations that kind of force you to be friends with people. This is elementary school. This is middle school. This is high school. This is your soccer team. This is your, like, I don't know, like Girl Scouts or something like that. You're put into environments that force you to be friends with people. But as an adult, you have work, and then you have like, that's it. So like if work is the only mandatory thing that you have to kind of put yourself into different extracurricular activities to make new friends. So get out of your house, get out of your apartment complex, get out of your typical like work week bubble, and put yourself into situations and environments that encourage you to make new friends. Another cool way to meet people is kind of finding people that have a similar routine to you. So I don't know if this is like creepy or what, but maybe you go for a morning walk and you always see the same person walking their dog. Maybe you have a dog too. This is such a hypothetical situation. Maybe you have a golden retriever and this person also has a golden retriever, and you guys see each other every day on your walk. Obviously, your dogs are going to want to be friends before the two of you. So let your dogs talk to each other. Maybe eventually this turns into, you guys meet at the park and your dogs play together, and then maybe you guys become friends. Who knows? That sounds like a good origin story for like a love story, doesn't it? Like he had a golden and I had a golden too, and then like I can hear it now. So pay attention to the people who are kind of on a similar routine to you. If you have some sort of common ground, find a way to make a conversation around it and then try to build a friendship off of that. Ultimately, when it comes to developing new friendships, I think you just have to put yourself out there, which comes really easily to some people and is really tough for others. But I will say, once you commit to friendships and commit to building a community of people, you'd be surprised at the level of reciprocation, because I don't think that no one's ever said to me, I don't want more friends. That's never been a thing. I think most people are open to building relationships. You just have to be friendly. Next, I want to talk about strengthening the friendships that you already have. Being vulnerable is probably the easiest way to cultivate a solid friendship. Most of my favorite people are the ones that I strengthen a connection through like a late night conversation. There's this interesting sense of trust and mutual vulnerability when you connect with a friend when it's dark outside. When the sun goes down, it's like getting later, and like maybe you guys have like a bonfire going and friends are kind of just like trickling off, like maybe so-and-so goes off to hang out in the woods. I don't know. Maybe my countryside is coming out. All of a sudden, it's like 2 a.m. and you are like sitting next to 1 or 2 other people and you guys are really just getting into like the nitty-gritty of life. That is where true friendships are made. And I think that is truly the vulnerability that all humans crave. When you can just talk to a person openly without having to filter yourself, without having to hold back to some degree, you can just be like, this is my story, and know that the person receiving your words accepts you for who you are, regardless of what might come out of your mouth. That is a testament of true friendship. When you mutually exchange the most authentic parts of you, that builds a sense of trust. ultimately deepening your friendship or relationship. I also think it's important. I talked about this in my episode with Kayla a couple weeks ago, but you have certain friends for certain parts of your life. You might have friends that are really fun to go out and dance with, go out and drink with, go out and party with, but maybe you don't trust them to the same magnitude as you trust the friends who are more like mentors to you. Maybe you don't trust the party friends with the friends that you talk to about your deepest, darkest fears and your past like childhood traumas and like all this stuff. Like there are definitely certain people in your life for certain reasons. So obviously don't like pour your heart and soul out to people who you know you can't trust. But if there are people in your life who you want to be closer to and it feels like that mutual respect is there, being vulnerable, speaking your truth will only help strengthen the friendship. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before about leaning on your friends. If you're in a situation, there might be better people to call for certain things. But something that I've learned this year is that you shouldn't be afraid to ask people for help. Over the next season of the podcast, like I said, it's going to be like my healing girl summer, healing girl era, whatever I'm calling it. You guys will kind of get little like glimpses into the past couple months of my life, and this is going to be one of them. But I remember pacing around in my kitchen. I was like shaking, and I just remember thinking, I have no one to call right now. And that could not have been further from the truth, because I distinctly remember firing off 2 text messages. And I'm not the type of person to ask for help. At least I wasn't before this, because I had never had friends that cared about me this deeply. And I fired off 2 text messages to 2 different people. And one of them said, like literally like dropped everything. Like, what do you need? Come over. Like, I'll help you. And the other one texted me back in the morning and said, I'm so sorry. I'm just now seeing this, and called me right away. And we talked. Let this serve as a reminder. A, ask for help when you need it. B, your friends want to help you, and being vulnerable and calling your friends in a time of need only helps to strengthen your relationship with them. I want to talk a little bit about having guy friends versus having girlfriends, because your girlfriends are the ones that you can just like be a girl with. I value my female friendships so freaking much. I love having women in my life who are going to help lift me up, who are going to empower me, who are going to support me, who are going to love me and help me be a better version of me. I can confidently say that I have so many supportive, loving, incredible female friendships, and I'm so grateful for it. In high school and college, I think I really struggled to make female friends because the mutual respect wasn't there. And I think oftentimes tend to get competitive, or maybe they're just, I don't know if it's jealousy or competition or just not really wanting to support other women. But time and time again, I've just seen the horrible, like backstabbing, shit talking bullshit that women put other women through. And it sucks. And I just remember in high school, like girls are so catty. And like when they found out I had a YouTube channel, you would have thought that you would have thought it was the end of the world. And I just, for the first time in my life, I'm so grateful that I have women in my life who I can just genuinely talk to about anything. To me, building solid female friendships, true female friendships, comes from opening up about yourself, your life, your struggles. And I just keep going back to the vulnerability thing, you know, like when you can sit and listen to someone or sit and talk to someone without judgment, without trying to be someone that you're not, magic happens. And this is true like male or female friendships. But when I started to make connections with women who actually listened to me and I could actually listen to them, and we just kind of had this mutual respect for one another as women, magic started to happen. I think that because I've been surrounding myself with other women who embrace their feminine energy, I'm able to be a better version of me, a better woman, a better sister, a better friend because of it. So when women support other women, good shit happens. In the same breath, I think it's really important to have guy friends. I know it's such a hot debate, like can girls and guys just be friends? I'm going to say yes. There's a handful of reasons why, but a couple things that I've learned this year from having some guy friends, and like solid guy friends who will literally just tell it like it is. That's one of the reasons, is that they'll just tell it like it is. Men are very like problem solution oriented, and they can only this isn't like a dig at men, just genuinely from what I've seen and learned and observed is they can do one thing at once. They can only do one thing at a time. They see the problem and they see the solution. And it's very interesting to me because I'm more complex than that. I'm going to be kind of sarcastic maybe when I tell the story, but I'm being serious. When I tell a guy an issue that I'm having, I wish that this was on film because I'm doing some hand gestures. I feel like as soon as I add video to the podcast, it'll just make it so much better because you guys can see my mannerisms. But when I tell a guy that I have a problem, he'll be like, oh, okay, we'll just do this. That's the solution. And oftentimes I'm like, but it's not that easy. And he's like, but it is. So I often think back to a communications class. It was my interpersonal communications class, my sophomore year of college. And one unit was the way that women communicate versus the way that men communicate. One thing that really stuck out to me in that unit was the fact that women will communicate more openly about emotions and feelings and personal topics and stuff. There's so much research that shows that female to female friendships are definitely more intimate than male to female friendships, if that makes sense. So you're more apt to talk about your feelings with another female than you are to talk about your feelings with a male. I just pulled up an article too, so I can kind of more elaborate on like male-female friendships. This is interesting. Male to male friendships are less fragile than female to female friendships. Example, men will consider someone a close friend even if they don't maintain or stay in constant contact. Guys have so many buddies. Lexi and I laugh about this all the time. You'll be talking to a guy and I'll be like, yeah, like one of my buddies is whatever. And you're like, how many buddies do you have? Because from this one conversation, you have 30 and they're spread far and wide and you haven't talked to most of them in like a year, but they're still your buddy. It's so interesting. But I think that that's what's so cool about women is that we crave like a very, very deep, meaningful connection with other people. That's why I'm even recording this episode. If I was a guy, it probably wouldn't matter, but women just like crave that deep connection. And not that guys don't crave a deep connection. They're just guys being dudes, I guess. When it really comes down to it, I think it's important to have strong, incredible, supportive women in your life who you can turn to, who are going to uplift you and love you. But same thing goes for male friendships. When you have like a handful of guys that you know has your back, it's like the best feeling. I know after kind of building up some solid male friendships, I feel like I can be a better female because I would love to have like a masculine, feminine energy expert on the podcast. But when I know that I have some guys that have my back just down the street, I feel like I can be a little more laid back to some degree. Like I don't have to, we're going to go on such a tangent. I went to see a massage therapist a couple weeks ago. I got a massage. Why did I say it so weird? A massage therapist. I went up to go get a massage a couple weeks ago, and your right side of your body is your masculine side and your left side of your body is your feminine side. And my entire right side of my body was so tense and tight. And I get this spot in the middle of my back and the vertebrae aligns with a certain type of energy. It's so interesting. I'm going to kind of show like my woo-woo side for a second. I was talking to the masseuse and she just basically said that I'm holding on to a lot in my masculine energy and I need to work on stepping into my female energy. And that's something that I've been working on kind of in this healing soft girl era, is just letting myself live fully in a balance between my masculine and my feminine energies, being so go, so hustle oriented, and also living with my younger sister. I kind of feel like I'm the head of the household, which people are going to probably get pissed off when I say stuff like this, but like traditionally the man is the head of the household. But living with my sister, I'm like kind of taking on that head role. The weight of that is a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. I know that the responsibility doesn't lie on me, but I just kind of feel this like unsaid responsibility for the both of us. And because I feel so much responsibility and was living in such a hustle, go mindset, I was truly just living in my masculine energy, completely disregarding my feminine side and the side of me that wants to like go get a pedicure and like frolic in the flowers. And I talked about this in my slow living episode, but since taking a step back from what my life used to look like, I'm able to just kind of step into my feminine. Knowing that I have guy friends that have my back is just calming, like gives me peace of mind. last but not least, we're going to talk about maintaining friendships / maintaining long distance friendships. And I kind of bundled these two together because your friendships as an adult might seem like long distance friendships, even though you guys live in the same town. Trying to make plans as an adult is basically you texting your friend, making a plan 2 days or the day of the plan is supposed to happen. One of you decides that you need to rain check for some reason, and then you guys just shift the plan. And so I found a couple ways to kind of make sure that you're continuing these deep connections with your friends while also juggling maybe distance or maybe busy schedules or maybe whatever else life throws at you. Here are some ways that you can maintain your friendships. First things first, if you have a friend that moves away, it is really, really, really important that if possible, you schedule time to go see that friend in their new city. If you're ever on the phone with them and they're talking about a friend or their apartment or their job or their whatever, and you haven't been there, it might be a little more difficult to relate to what they're saying and doing in their new life because you haven't visited. Obviously, don't visit them right away. Let them kind of settle in, maybe 3 to 6 months, but go visit them and just kind of see what their new life is like. And this will help you guys connect because you know that coffee shop that they love. You met their new friend that is also their coworker, or maybe you met their new boyfriend, or I don't know, whatever the situation is, you kind of have an inside look into what their new life is like. This one kind of goes for both long distance friendships and friendships in your immediate area. I definitely think that scheduling time to call your friends or text your friends or check in on your friends is always a good idea. I'm definitely guilty of sending a, hey, I'm thinking of you text and then not responding back to them. But it's nice to just send a little hey, thinking of you, or maybe a memory pops up on Snapchat or Instagram, or you know how Apple will make those collages with your friends and put sad music behind it. If you get one of those, you could jokingly send it to your friend and be like, hey, now I'm crying. Or maybe a song comes on the radio that makes you think of them. Just shoot them a little text and be like, hey, saw this, made me think of you. I'm a firm believer that if someone that you haven't thought about in a while drops into your mind, there's a reason why. So if someone just pops into your mind, maybe you're doing a meditation and you think about this person or whatever. If someone kind of pops into your mind, just give them a ring. See what they have to say. It's always really interesting to act on those notifications that you get because you never know what someone's going through, and hearing from you might just make their day. Another good idea is to set a reoccurring event on the calendar. So maybe you guys always do dinner on Wednesday nights, or maybe on Saturday mornings you guys like to go for a run, or maybe you guys go to a yoga class together. I will never stop recommending that. But just kind of setting a reoccurring thing that you guys always do. Maybe you only see each other for 15 minutes during this thing, or maybe it's a long dinner at one of your houses and you guys swap every week. Whatever it is, setting a reoccurring thing just kind of sets that expectation that, okay, on this day you have my undivided attention and we're going to hang out, we're going to catch up. But other than that, I can't text you 24/7, but I know that we're friends because we're still spending quality time together. Another piece of advice that I have is to continue to show up to things and continue to invite people to things. So it goes both ways. If you invite people to things, you will be invited to things. And if you show up to things, then you'll continue to get invited to more things. So even though you may have said yes to plans with a group and you aren't sure if you want to go on a Friday night, more often than not, I always enjoy going, and I would have had FOMO if I had stayed home. So obviously, know your boundaries, don't say yes to everything. But if you made plans, try to stick to them because it's always worth seeing your friends and you might have a really good time, and you would have been sad had you had missed out. Another little tidbit of advice is to be present when you're with your friends. Last night we had some people over and I just left my phone in my room, and it was so nice to take a break from my phone, because if you guys know me, you know that I'm always on my phone, and not even intentionally, I'm just always working. I have, however, gone into a bad habit of just going really, really deep into reels, and that needs to stop. But I do think that being intentional about spending time with the people that are literally sitting in front of you rather than just scrolling is super important. Unless the only catch to this is if this is a friend that you're super close to, maybe it's your roommate, or maybe it's your sister, or maybe it's your, I don't know, whoever, and you guys both mutually agree that this is quiet friendship time, is what I like to call it. And that's when you guys are just sitting and doing nothing. You don't have to entertain each other. You don't have to talk to keep it not awkward. You can literally just chill together. And that's always kind of nice too, just like being in the company of a friend and not having to have a conversation or not having to do anything. You guys can just like sit there and watch a movie and chill, or sit there and scroll on reels and like send them back and forth to each other. That's always fun. But unless you're super close with this person and it's intentionally quiet friendship time, I encourage you to be present, and I encourage you to arrive to the hangout session with a couple questions in your back pocket of things that maybe you guys discussed last time you were together. If you know that they have something going on in their family, maybe ask about that. If you know that they recently went to a concert, maybe ask about that, or went on a trip. Be like, okay, how was Vegas? Like, just kind of have a couple questions that you can ask them to make them feel like, oh, this person remembered that I was doing X, Y, and Z, and this person is very intentional with the things that they do when we're together. Like we kind of talked about earlier, I'm never the type of person to try to like talk over other people. And so if someone is excessively talking, maybe they just have a lot to share. Obviously, you want it to go both ways. Your friendship should be mutual, but definitely kind of like offer a space for them to just talk about whatever they want to talk about. Unless you guys are in like a business meeting, like this should be a fun hangout and you guys should just talk about whatever comes to mind. And that also opens the floor to continue to build vulnerability. I feel like I've said it over and over and over again in this episode, but true friendships come when you are open and honest and authentic and yourself. That has brought so many incredible people into my life. And that's the reason why I feel a lot less lonely than I did, say, a year ago, because I've been able to open up to people and just kind of come at it like, this is who I am, take it or leave it, but I'm gonna love you if you're my friend, and I expect you to love me back. So that is it for today's episode. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please, please, please be sure to leave a rate and review. That just helps more people find and listen to the show. You guys can also follow me on Instagram at LilyRayCo, or the podcast Instagram at 8020pod. Both of those will be linked in the show notes. Get pumped for season 7 coming June 1st. You guys are absolutely going to love it. I've got so many cool tricks up my sleeve. So I would definitely have to say that clicking those links in the show notes will kind of give you like the inside scoop as to what's going on as far as the new season goes. So definitely check out the links. Love you guys lots. Have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you very soon.